And then there were two. The field is set in the I8FA. The state championship is being played in Monmouth this Friday. And Mitch, once again, our coverage area right in the thick of it.
Yeah, two of our teams once again competing here for the state championship. It's an exciting weekend here. Just talking about the 8-man state championship, and two great teams going to battle for it.
So the 8-man division gets their own full episode this week. The 8-man pod. Here we go. We got a special guest along for the ride. Let's get into the state championship talk.
Talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a view from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome into View from the West podcast, the podcast covering Illinois high school football on the western side of the state of Illinois. I'm your host, Greg Armstrong, joined once again, as always, by Mitch Stormer. Mitch, it's a big week this week. We got two episodes we're putting out here. This is our 8-man state championship preview. The I8FA gets its own podcast this week.
Yeah, and well-deserved, right? It's been an exciting season in 8-man, as it always has been in years past. And boy, this is going to be a good one. You've got the defending champion in Amboy against Milledgeville team making their first state appearance. So two great teams. Really anticipate a really, really fun state championship on Friday night.
Well, like you referenced, Amboy and Milledgeville right in the thick of our coverage area. Both teams from the NUIC. So if we're talking Northwest Upstate Illini football, we're talking some 8-man. We got to bring in our guy, Kyle Kampmeyer. Kyle, welcome once again to the show. Thank you for lending your knowledge and your expertise here about the small school football up in the Northwest part of the state.
Well, as always, it's always great to join you guys. And here we are talking about NUIC football and state championships. What gets better than that?
I love it. I mean, every year I feel like the 8-man playoffs are always some of the most exciting football that we see. And every year we always kind of hope that it's teams from our coverage area, and it played out this week or this year again. So let's jump right into it here. Let's talk about the semifinals that were. We'll talk about the state championship game, kind of break it down a little bit and see what we see in the Missiles and the Clippers. Headed to Monmouth, Illinois, Friday night, 7 p.m. kickoff. Kyle, you've been there several times over the years, but this is going to be my first trip to Monmouth for a 8-man state title game. I'm excited. I'm going to be walking the sidelines there. You'll be up in the warm press box, but I'll be down on the sidelines.
Yeah, it's going to be a great advantage point for me, getting a great view from the 50-yard line, looking down at the whole field. Nice and cozy. Might have some pizza in a press box. Who knows?
All right.
But yeah, no, it's a great atmosphere. I love Monmouth College. I love the fact that they are the host for the 8-man state championship game. It gives it a great feel overall.
Yep. Yeah, I'm excited to get down there and check it out myself. It was one of those things I had on my radar last couple years, and it hasn't really worked out. But this year we're going to make the trip. I'm really excited. All right, so we'll break down the semifinal matchups, and we'll look ahead at the state title game between Milledgeville and Amboy. But if we're talking high school football, we're talking state championships. Mitch, you know who we got to thank. Who powers the pod?
Yeah, we're pretty excited about this matchup, but you know who else is? That's our friends at Breedlove's. Tonight's episode, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They provide all the same sporting goods services as the big nationwide companies, but with a faster turnaround, and their uniform pricing is a fraction of the cost you're probably used to. They offer names such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. Check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com for more information.
Absolutely. We thank Breedlove for their partnership, for their sponsorship of the podcast. Exciting times coming for us and for Breedlove's. Mitch, I've been in communication with them. We're talking, we're making some plans for some postseason hardware some awards that we can ship out to our winners, including our, winners from the 11-man ranks, but of course our winners from the 8-man ranks. Maybe something to give away to a team, some awards for a team that wins our team of the year. Certainly one of these teams, Milledgeville or Amboy, will be our 8-man team of the year. So something to watch for down the road there. Really exciting stuff. So, all right, here we go. Let's look back at the semifinals and see what got us here to a state championship game. Milledgeville gets the win over rival Polo, 28-14. They're ringing the victory bell in Milledgeville on Saturday. The Missiles headed to a state title game for the first time in school history. I was watching this game live as it was happening. Great production as always, covering these 8-man games. Is it, what's the name of the production company, Kyle? Is it Hewlett?
Hewlett Public Pro LLC. Otherwise, you can look it up under TSSR Game Time Live.
Yes, absolutely. Shout them out. Give them a plug. They do great work promoting small school 8-man football. Their broadcasts are great. And our guy, Kyle Leach, was on the call. I heard it. I know, Kyle, you heard it as well. He's a Milledgeville alum. He's passionate about Milledgeville football. And that's what it's all about. Like, to hear the excitement in his voice. Like, I got goosebumps hearing him make the call. Because, like, you could hear it through the mic, man. It was exciting stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I mean, I was sitting at the Dupec game, and so I had his game on in my ear with his call going on, and it was phenomenal just hearing that pure jubilation and exultation at the end of the game come. Yeah, like you said, it just came right through the mic. It was like, oh man, you can just tell how excited he is. And of course, his partner Kurt Folk was just as excited, also a Milledgeville alum. But hearing Kyle's voice, that was just, yes, it was like, yes, I'm happy. I'm happy for Kyle because after all those years of heartache for the Missiles, they finally break through.
Yep, absolutely. They finally break through, and they broke through in a big way in this one to start the game. Milledgeville sprints out to an 8-0 lead behind the speed of Micah Tom Smith, scored on an 86-yard touchdown run. He took the direct snap, and he was gone. Really impressive blocking to set him up, and he had to outrun him, and he did. After struggling offensively in their first game against Polo, I felt like that sort of momentum swing was huge to start this game. They built a 14-0 lead. Polo hung around in this one, had their opportunities, but the Missiles consistently had the answers, both on offense and defense, making plays in this one. Mitch, really impressive effort here from the Missiles. It's hard to bounce back after you lost to them in a rivalry game at home earlier in the season. That's always kind of in the back of your mind, but man, this team came out motivated and they get the job done. They flipped the script here.
Let me ask you this. Did the trophy switch hands?
No, I do not believe so, because I think the disdain that you have for this whole concept just
no. Every time you play, it should count for something. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not as dead set on that mindset, because like in college football, not that it happens very often, but if teams play in a bowl game when a rivalry trophy is normally on the line, I don't think they'd switch it then. But it never really happens in college, I guess.
I don't think it happens that much, but for the spirit of the trophy, let's just have it up for grabs whenever the two teams play. Playoffs, regular season, doesn't matter.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, but last year this was reversed. Milledgeville got the win in the regular season and Polo got the win in the postseason, correct?
That is correct.
So I think Milledgeville held on to the trophy last year, and now this year, here we go. Milledgeville gets the trip to the state title game, but they don't have the trophy, much to Mitch's disdain.
Yeah, but to your original question, certainly to have that feeling in your head for however many weeks that was since they last played, and with everything that was on the line, right? You had Polo, who had been in this situation a lot recently, right? They've been to semifinals, each of the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Is it that many? And then you have Milledgeville, who finally gets over that quarterfinal hump. They're in this, scenario, not only in the semifinals for the first time, but then it's a rivalry game, so you never know what that mindset's going to be. But Coach Rebel had them ready to go. Like you mentioned, it didn't take long for them to get going, and that sets the tone. So Micah Tom Smith, wonderful job there. And yeah, we've been super impressed with Polo, but boy, the tools that Milledgeville has, and we'll get into the breakdown in the preview of the state championship game in a minute, but Milledgeville has been a lot of fun. They put up a ton of points this year in the regular season. And yeah, this game was a great win for Milledgeville to get into the state championship.
Yeah, let's read through some of the numbers here. For the Missiles, Tom Smith goes 14 carries, 120 yards and a touchdown. Carter Livingood, 29 carries, 197 yards, 3 touchdowns. Livingood had touchdown runs of 9 yards, 41, and 21 yards. The last one coming on a 4th down near the end of the game with about 3 minutes left to really seal the deal for Milledgeville. Kyle, talk to us about, this switch to Livingood going to quarterback, taking those direct snaps and really getting the ball in his hands, every down. And I think that it's been a recipe for success here against 2 really heavy hitters in Ridgewood and Polo. I like it. I mean, I think, kind of figuring out these wrinkles here and playing your best football at the right time.
Yeah, it's almost like going to an 8-man version of the Veer offense, right? Where you want the quarterback to be part of the running game, QB option offense, whatever you want to call it, Veer QB option. But, it's one of those things where you have a freshman quarterback in Kyson Francis, did an extraordinary job coming in after an injury to Evan Shank, threw for 1,235 yards and 24 touchdowns. And then they hit the quarterfinal round and they decide, hey, let's make a change. And that change was to move Livingood to quarterback to open up the run game more. And I think it's one of those things where we've seen Milledgeville have the success in diversity in both the pass and the run game over the last 3 years, but ultimately it comes to them falling in the quarterfinal round. And this year they wanted to change something. And one of those changes goes back to the words I always say, run teams win in November. And I think, not saying that Coach Robo took my advice. I'm not taking any credit for that. But clearly they had to figure out how to get their run game better and change things up a little differently to give them a different look. And it has definitely helped them set the tone here and get themselves ready for a state championship game.
Yeah, it's been dynamic. The last couple weeks, you can really see that, they're figuring some things out. They're playing really well defensively as well. Livingood's playing great defense too, with a handful of other guys on that defense. But to see what this offense is becoming, I think it was, in talking to Kyle Leach and hearing stuff from Coach Robo before the game in the pregame interview, sounded like it was something they'd always kind of had, in their back pocket. They'd been considering it, and that they really wanted to make sure they had, their line play shored up, that they really kind of had all the pieces working around it to make sure it was going to work. Because you got to have blocking if you're going to have Livingood getting the snap every down and to make, be running out of the quarterback position. And it seems like they've gotten to a point where they feel confident, and they have, and it worked. It's worked so far against some really good defenses. So, it's interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely something that had to be put together before they actually hit the quarterfinals. Like, this isn't something you just throw into 1 week and get prepared for it. This had to be something that they were playing around for with quite a while as the season went on. And with that said, good changes here. I mean, you take a look, it's definitely lifted the rushing yards for Micah Tom Smith, because I think it's made him more available to get out into open space when they're trying to counter the play of Carter Livingood, who is already just 1 yard shy of 300 yards after 2 games. So, I mean, pretty much he's averaging 150 yards a game over the last 2 games. And like I said, it's just open up that rushing attack against some pretty stout defenses between Ridgewood and Polo.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of good defenses, how about Milledgeville's defense? They limit Polo's senior quarterback, Gus Mumford, to 43 yards on 18 carries. Noah Dewey went for 24 yards on 7 carries. Mumford threw for over 100 yards and a touchdown. But, they really were never quite able to fully get in sync in this game. They never really, they had some opportunities, and Milledgeville continued to have answers on the defensive front. Just a great effort on both sides of the football from Milledgeville. They get that little bit of revenge. They get the win over rival Polo, 28-14, sending the Missiles to the I8FA State Championship game. It's a place that Milledgeville has never been, but the team they're going to be going up against, very familiar with the 8-man state championship game.
This episode of View from the West podcast is brought to you by Simulation Sports. In addition to golf simulators and batting cages, Simulation Sports provides golf club repair, custom fittings for driver shafts, and even private lessons for golf, baseball, and softball. Whether you're looking for a fun group activity or want to fine-tune your skills and equipment, Simulation Sports has something for everyone. Visit their facility at 400 South Main Street in Monmouth, Illinois, or go to thesimulationsports.com to start playing today.
Shouldn't financial advice focus on you? I can help you plan for your financial future, from protection to saving to retirement. I'm Nate Neighbor, your Modern Woodman representative. Call me at 309-233-2656 or find me on the Modern Woodman website.
Get to know your local Modern Woodman representative to plan for your financial future and learn about valuable member benefits. Modern Woodman of America. Touching lives, securing futures. Securities offered through MWA Financial Services, Inc., a wholly owned subsidiary of Modern Woodman of America.
View from the West podcast is also sponsored by the Cupcake Cartel. Gourmet cupcakes that are made to order. Over 40 flavors including wedding cake, lemon blueberry, strawberry milkshake, snickerdoodle, and Oreo. Perfect for weddings, birthdays, showers, fundraisers, or any event. You can find the Cupcake Cartel on Facebook. We thank them for their support.
So let's talk about Amboy getting the win 52-8 over Pawnee. Dominating performance for the Clippers. They return to the 8-man state title game. Like we referenced, they're comfortable being in Monmouth this late in the season. This is their third consecutive trip to the I8FA state title game. Mitch, opening thoughts on this one? This was a lopsided finish, and we did not really see that coming.
I don't know that I would go that far. And I'll pitch to Kyle in a second so he can kind of navigate the waters of his Facebook page about this game.
Yeah.
To me, I just didn't think Pawnee had played many good teams. I didn't think the level of competition that Amboy had played all year, I thought that was going to be a definite mismatch. Now, obviously, we were super impressed with Carson Wart and Pawnee's attack, but at the same time, you're going up against the defending 8A, champions, a team that, as you just mentioned, have gone to the state championship 3 times in a row now. I did not expect this to be close, to be perfectly honest with you. But again, there were others out there that maybe thought that Pawnee was going to take care of business, but teams from the north, man, they continue to impress.
I will say real quick, I was kind of talked into it. So I listened to the Spotlight on I8FA, their podcast last week, and they were really talking about how this was going to be a showdown. And so with hearing about what Carson Wart had done the week before, and just knowing that it seemed like, they were playing great football all year, but maybe they were really ramping up this time of year. I wanted to see, would Amboy consistently have answers for Wart all game long? I thought Amboy could answer the call and slow him down, but I wanted to see, could you do it enough I didn't think it'd be a blowout game, right? I don't know. Kyle, what was I way off here? I don't know.
So I never put out my initial projection because I kind of altered it a little bit. My initial projection, and I did state it in my podcast last week, but I thought that the game 2 would be closer than what the projection stated. It was like 42-14 in favor of Amboy, which is a lot closer to what the final score was than what the score projection I put out was, which was 38-26.
Yeah.
There were some things that I really liked about Pawnee when we went down to watch them last week, in the quarterfinal game. But there was also some things that I saw that earlier in the year I had mentioned about quite often, and that was the line play of Pawnee. They had the skill guys all over the field to be able to compete with anybody, but I felt like their line was not as strong as Ridgewood, Milledgeville, Amboy, and Polo's lines. And it wasn't like overall strength. It was just strength as a core unit. And um watching that game in the rain down in Pawnee, you really couldn't see it that much because, side to side movement and slop and mud doesn't really get you a lot of gains. And they were definitely able to maneuver through it a lot better than what St. Anne was. But I noticed that, they have three linemen, and one I really identified as being the weak link to their offensive line. And if anybody could be able to penetrate that, it was going to be the demise for Pawnee, in my opinion, because it was an open gate to really get a lot of pressure on both Wart and on Ward, to where you could disrupt both the passing game and the rushing game. And unfortunately, that lineman had to go up against All-Stater Quinn Leffelman, of all people. And he did his work that night and just really opened up that gate wide open to where, they were able to neutralize the Pawnee offense even more so than what I thought would actually happen.
Yeah. Let's talk about the game here. Amboy forces a Pawnee turnover on downs to start the game. Then their offense, the Clipper offense, marches downfield to grab their first score. Eddie Jones with a 30-yard touchdown pass to Ryland McNinch. Did you see this highlight? This play was incredible. It's a one-handed grab, and then from there, he grabs it, corrals it in, then fights for the goal line and gets there. Really impressive, catch and run and just fight for the goal line. Really great play there from Ryland. You had next Pawnee possession. It's a block punt. That sets up Braden Klein for a short field touchdown. Indians would cut the lead to 22-8 early, but Amboy would not be denied in this one. Braden Klein with 109 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Caleb Llanos with a big 78-yard touchdown reception from Jones. But I think the story of this game, like we kind of referenced, was Amboy's defense holding Carson Wart to under 100 yards, just 1 touchdown. He's been impressive to watch. We talked all about his numbers last week. He had 2 runs of 17 and 35 yards, but otherwise he was pretty much contained. Maybe the most impressive effort at the end of the first half, Amboy denied Wart on a 4th down from the 2-yard line. So I think, if you're able to hold him out of the end zone from 2 yards away, a tough power runner like he is, I think that's an impressive statement for Amboy's line play and just their defense overall.
Yeah, I mean, he was given a hard push at that goal line stand. I mean, you could see the power, and Amboy was able to meet him head on, and then we're able to get some additional bodies behind him to really stave him off. And I thought he was going to get in. I mean, like I said before, he is a hard runner. Like, you can't look at him and say, oh, he's not a power runner. He can put the moves on you, but he can also bully you over. And I mean, that's one of the things I really liked about Carson Wart was how low he really gets when he gets into a point of contact. And Amboy did a great job on that. One of the things I did hear from a Pawnee parent was that they felt that Amboy is definitely a lot faster than what they had anticipated. And clearly you could see that on film as well. But, we always talk about line play. It doesn't always matter, especially in high school football. It doesn't matter how big you are. It matters how fast you come off the line. And Amboy definitely looked undersized, but at the same time, they were just so much faster at every point of attack. I mean, it really was like you said, it wasn't a score that you expected. You thought it would be a more bigger game than what it was, but Amboy just said, "Hey, we're the state champs. Let's go."
It seemed like Amboy grabbed that momentum early and really took Pawnee out of the game, kind of eliminates that home field advantage right away. And I think that was a big part of it, was that everything that could go right for Amboy early on went their way. They played really well, and things were not going well for Pawnee, and it just snowballed quickly. And I think that's kind of the result in that final score for sure.
The View from the West Player of the Week is brought to you by Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They offer name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. You can check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com.
This is Dan Pearson of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Our FCA team of staff, board, and volunteers is pleased to support View from the West with Greg and Mitch. Our Northwest Illinois FCA team is 3 teams in 1, serving coaches and athletes in the Three Rivers, Northern Illinois, and Greater Peoria areas, all with schools covered by View from the West. For more information, email me at danpearson@fca.org. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
The Quad City's first and only fantasy football show, For Fantasy Sake, has you all covered when it comes to all of your fantasy football needs. The guys come to you live every Sunday morning during the football season from 10 to 11:30. They've got the best analysis, rankings, DFS, and gambling advice between the Rock and Mississippi Rivers. So tune into For Fantasy Sake every Sunday during the football season from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Hey, this is Brett Bielma, the head coach of the Fighting Illini from Prophetstown, Illinois. You're listening to the View from the West podcast.
So, all right, here we go. That sets up the I8FA State Championship game. Some news and notes, some facts from Kyle Kampmeyer here. Amboy's the first team with 3 state final appearances in the short history of the I8FA. Milledgeville, like we referenced, making their first trip to the state finals in school history. And the state champion this season will be, for the first time ever, the state champion of the I8FA will not be undefeated. Now, that comes with a slight asterisk, so I'll let you explain, Kyle, but it's still, a little bit of a unique look this year.
It is. So the slight adjustment is back in 2018, that was the first official year of 8-man football in the state of Illinois. And with that, there was a state championship that year, but there were only 6 teams that participated in the 8-man football. So there was a lot of games that were done out of state. And one of the teams, believe it or not, that had dropped down to 8-man football in that first couple of years was Lake Forest Academy. And they were not able to qualify for the playoffs due to the size of their enrollment. However, the MCP Bearcats, they did lose to Lake Forest that year. It was their only loss that they had. And then the playoffs came around, they beat Christian Life, and then they beat Alden Hebron for the state championship. So technically, MCP was 9-1 that year.
Okay.
So they did have a loss, but it came, in a season where a lot of people are hesitant to say, well, that's the official year of 8-man football.
Yeah. So for all intents and purposes, once we really kind of got the ball rolling here in 8-man, every other year it's been an undefeated state champion. So a little bit of a different look this year with the way things have played out. So Kyle, the reason we brought you on, I'll go to you first. Give me your opening thoughts on Amboy versus Milledgeville. What excites you about this matchup?
Well, one thing that really excites me is if you remember the opening polls to start off the year, everybody in our group had Amboy ranked number 1.
Yep.
Most had Polo ranked number 2, but there was a few of us, myself included, who had Milledgeville at number 2. So Milledgeville did open up the polls ranked number 3. So ideally, our top 4 teams that we started off with the beginning of the year were the same top 4 teams we had at the end of the year. And they were the top 4 teams that we talked about all year long. And we could see any one of them progressing their way to this state championship game at Monmouth College. And when you take a look at the 2 teams that lost, Polo and Ridgewood, they were both in close games to Milledgeville. And the 2 teams that we felt when the brackets rolled out, the 2 teams we felt that had the hardest path to that state championship game were going to be Milledgeville and Ridgewood, because from the quarterfinals on, they'd have to play each other, then they'd have to play Polo, and then the likelihood of playing Amboy at state. And it all worked out in the exact same way that we thought it would. The other thing is you have the 2 highest scoring teams in I8FA going up against each other for the state championship game.
Wow, I was wondering about that because I assumed both of them, they've put up points. So that's exciting stuff.
The other interesting fact is they're also 2 of the top 4 stingiest defenses in I8FA.
Yeah. I mean, I think overall it's going to be strength versus strength on both sides of the ball. Both teams do things really well. Mitch, any opening thoughts on this one? What do you like about it?
No, I think it just, for all the reasons that Kyle just kind of mentioned, right? We're getting 2 of the best teams in the state championship, and that's what you want to see every year. Now, in 8-man, it tends to maybe play out that way, maybe more than you see in an 11-man. But nonetheless, right? These are 2 phenomenal teams, had great years. Again, like Kyle just mentioned, putting up a ton of points on offense, not allowing a ton of points to be scored against them. You've got all sorts of playmakers on both sides of the ball for both teams. So, no, I'm really looking forward to this. I've been racking my head about, matchups and advantages and things of that nature. So, if we're going to get to predictions here in a minute, I might have to make a decision on the fly, because I could see this game going any number of ways. And that's going to be an exciting part about watching this game play out on Friday night.
Yeah, I think one thing that stands out to me, and Kyle, I'll let you kind of weigh in as well, what your thoughts are. I think that both of these offenses, it's not just one guy. It's not even really just 2 guys, right? There's pretty much workload that's pretty equally spread out. Now, Carter Livingood from Milledgeville is going to get his, right? They're going to rely on him a lot, especially now coming out of the quarterback position as kind of that wildcat type of quarterback. But, for the Amboy side of things, Eddie Jones, very reliable at quarterback, very experienced at quarterback. He can throw a little bit when he needs to. Got some reliable wide receivers. But you're talking about, Josh McKendry is over 1,000 yards, 22 touchdowns. Braden Klein right behind him with over 1,000 yards, 15 touchdowns. So you got, several different names that can get the job done. And Quinn Leffelman, going down the list as well. A name we talked about a lot over the years. So I think both teams, they can find different ways to hurt you. Defense has really got to be ready. And obviously these are 2 very good defenses.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, talking about, let's go to Amboy first and look at Eddie Jones. You mentioned about how good of a passer he is. They haven't really thrown the ball that much this year. He's thrown for 1,036 yards, 17 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. But his completion percentage is 64%. You compare that to last year's state title run when he threw for 1,719 yards with 29 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions at a 60% clip. Over the last 2 seasons, he's throwing at a 62% clip and has thrown for over 2,700 yards with 46 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions.
Well, so, his top target, that Caleb Llanos, caught 13 touchdown passes this year, but it feels like, it doesn't feel like they do it that often, but he's there and ready to make those plays.
Well, and that's just it. So, I mean, if you want to load up the box, they're just going to go over top of you, and they have the ability to do so. I mean, Caleb Janos is fast too, and he kind of slithers his way out of the line, and works his way downfield to where he gets open a lot. And Eddie throws a nice ball, like we said. I mean, yeah, they're going to run the ball. They're a running team, but they're not afraid to throw the ball at the same time either. And we haven't really seen the run game go through Quinn Luffelman as we have over the past 2 years. I mean, this is a guy who's ran for over 2,700 yards in his career, and he only has 522 yards rushing this year.
Yeah.
So they haven't really utilized him a whole lot in the run game. I think some of that was because early on he had an injury that he was dealing with. But here in the playoffs, while he hasn't really broke the 100-yard barrier yet, I don't remember. But if you look at his yards per carry in the playoffs, it's like 15 yards per carry. So, I mean, he's getting the damage done when he does get the ball. And you can start seeing that impact start to rise up in his output as well. But, yeah, Josh McKendry's been a workhorse for Amboy this year, picking up right where Landon Welchel left off for them last year. And then Braden Klein has really increased his amount of opportunities as well. I think last year he ran for like 238 yards, and this year he's capitalized with over 1,000-yard season as well as a secondary back. But really, when you take a look at their carries, they're very well balanced on who gets the ball between him and McKendry as well. So I like what they have going on. You can never count out Eddie Jones in the run game either. Doesn't run it much, but he has rushed for 240 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he does have the opportunities to do that. And he's averaging almost 8 yards per carry when he does run. So they give you multiple options that you have to be able to attack. And it comes down to discipline. Now, on the other side of the ball is probably the most disciplined defense I've seen in I8FA this year, and that is the Milledgeville Missiles. We have talked about this on this podcast before, about how Milledgeville, especially with their defensive front line, really resembles what Amboy's defensive front line looked like last year. And it's bookended by their 2 defensive ends in Living Good and Dalton Adamic. And it's just been a lot of fun to see that defense play because they're so fast. They're not the biggest defense, but they fly to the ball. They're not afraid to hit. And like Coach Roble made the statement of, he goes, I got some guys that they just want to play defense. And if they could just play defense only, that's what they wanted to do. So, I mean, these are a bunch of kids that just want to go out and hit somebody. And I love that style of football, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Milledgeville offense then. We've talked about Carter Living Good. You got Micah Tom Smith, a name we haven't mentioned yet, Connor Johnson. He's an electric player. We've seen him over the past couple years. He can make plays. And so, that's an interesting, to see how he fits into this. But talk us through the Milledgeville offense, especially the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, so Connor Johnson, obviously, he gets it done both in the run game and the pass game. Very electric guy. I mean, it's pretty fun when you watch a Milledgeville game and you start hearing, let's go, Johnny, because all of his teammates, every time he gets the ball, like they think something big is going to happen. Yep. And more times than not, it does, right? I mean, he is very electric. I mean, he's rushed for 377 yards with 8 touchdowns on 14 yards a carry. He has received the ball 16 times for 397 yards and another 9 touchdowns on 25 yards a catch. So, yes, very electric, very fast. It's one of the things I do really like about Coach Roble is he wants his team to score in every facet, offense, defense, and special teams. That's his goal. And when you combine Johnson with Micah Tom Smith as both punt returner, kick returner, and then you got him coming out of the backfield, being able to catch passes across the middle, it creates a lot of issues for a lot of teams because of the speed that they have. And then you can't forget Carter Livingood, who actually leads the team in receptions and yards with almost 500 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns, and he's gaining 27 yards a catch.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fast and explosive. Like, their numbers don't jump off the chart at you because there's not a lot of numbers there. Yeah. But the numbers that they have are big numbers when you break it down by carry and catch.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see, as we get into now the third week of Carter Livingood mainly being out of quarterback position, kind of what other wrinkles they continue to throw in. It just seems like the playbook continues to kind of shift and, to alter just a little bit, just slightly, to where, Amboy may not have, as much film as what, other teams, as what in reverse, as what Milledgeville has on Amboy. Does that make sense? Like, I just think that this late in the year, it seems like Coach Robles kind of pulled this little wrinkle out there. And now it's like, okay, team's got to figure out how to defend it because it looks different and it feels different. That's exciting stuff. I'm excited to see how that plays out on the biggest stage, right, in the state championship.
Yeah, and on top of that, we have 2 other guys that we haven't even mentioned yet that are actually big contributors to this offense, and that's Jaden Promenchakel and Spencer Nye, who both have like 53, 52 carries apiece, and they're both sitting right around 450, 460 yards, and they've combined for 14 rushing touchdowns themselves. Yeah.
Has Nye kind of been moved into a lineman spot on offense once in a while now?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And I will say, like, you gotta love like the team player aspect, right? Like, moving out of that skill position, do what's best for the team right now, fill a spot on the line, and get your job done. And it seems like it's a great asset to have, and it's a great team player.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, he's not a big kid, but he is strong. He's very strong. And like I said, at middle linebacker defensively, like, he's the kid that's going to come up and stick you in a hurry. I mean, we talk about Adamic and Livingood being the DNs, but Spencer Nye at middle linebacker, I tell you what, that kid plays fearless, and it's just fun to watch him play because he's all over the field. He plays linebacker the way you want a linebacker to play. And, his size doesn't get him much, but you wouldn't know how big he was if you watch him play because he plays bigger than what he is. And that's what's fun about him.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we get into, the fun that everybody loves to hear from Kyle? Do you got those projections? What is the Massey ratings, the Cal Preps website? What does that say about this state championship game?
Well, it kind of leads us down the path that we figured. So when you take a look at these 2 teams, Amboy has scored 600 points on the year. They've allowed 134 points on the year, which averages out to a 39-point differential between them and their opponents. Milledgeville has scored 616 points while allowing 160 points for a differential of 38 points. So it's a point difference between the two, between what they've scored and what they've allowed.
Yep.
The projection rate, the favorite in this game is Amboy by 1.5 points.
Ooh, it's close. All right.
The projection on this game is a little bit more favorable for Amboy. It has Amboy winning 36-28.
36-28. All right. Well, Mitch, I'll start with you. 36-28. The projection says Amboy wins. What do you think about that? I'll start there.
Yeah, like I said, I've been kind of just I can see a number of scenarios play out in this game. Which offense is going to shine, which defense is going to make the stops when they need to, who's going to be able to, I don't want to say they're going to control that ball because both of these offenses are kind of quick strike, but who can make the most out of their possessions, obviously. So you look at it, Amboy coming in, been here before, third time, defending state champions, only one loss this year. But look, I I think, and going back the last couple of years at least, Amboy's had Milledgeville's number. There's a lot of Milledgeville players that have been on this roster and playing on this team for the last couple of years. Seen a lot of playing time, have played Amboy before. I think at the end of the day, I'm gonna roll with the missiles. I'm gonna roll with Coach Roble. It's a Morrison guy. He's certainly played against Amboy as a player, coached against Amboy as a coach. But all in all, it's Micah Tom Smith, it's Carter Livingood. I think that offense has the tools to kind of break through this Amboy defense and get their first state championship. I think that'd be a lot of fun to see.
Yep. Kyle, do you agree with the projections?
So I have talked all year about Amboy was the clear favorite. I mean, I said it right when I was leaving Monmouth last year, that the clear favorite for state this year was Amboy.
Yep.
And here they are. They're back at it again. And yes, when you look at experience, when you look at history in recent years for I8FA football, Amboy stands alone right now. There's a couple teams that are right behind them, like Polo, but Amboy stands alone. But give me the missiles, baby. I like the missiles because I've talked about team speed all year. They are the fastest team I've seen all single year. And I think that is where they're going to win this game. I think that they're going to come out. They're going to make things happen on special teams. They're going to be the differentiator in this game. So I agree with Mitch. I'm taking the missiles in this one. I'm going against the projections and taking Milledgeville.
All right. Being that I'm walking the sidelines covering the game, can I defer and not make a pick, or are you gonna put me on the spot?
Nope, you gotta pick it.
All right.
Just walk both sidelines.
Well, okay.
Maybe stay in the end zone.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I love the I'll start with, I like the wave of momentum that Milledgeville's riding right now. I also love the experience for Amboy, and I think that they are, certainly battle tested. Kyle, like you mentioned, we talked about it 1 year ago, saying we knew we were confident they would be back, and here they are. I thought I was going out on a limb in picking Milledgeville, but here we are. I guess it's a clean sweep. So I don't know if that makes us look really smart or really dumb. I guess we'll find out. But
wow, what the hell? It's gonna. Here's the thing. It's gonna be a great game. Last year, like you said, Amboy won this game 32-20, and the game was actually closer than what the final score ended up being, because at one time it was tied at 20 all, and it was in the third quarter. I believe late third quarter. I can't remember exactly, but I know it was third quarter, tied at 20, and then Amboy was able to separate themselves. Milledgeville is very familiar with what Amboy wants to do. It's not going to be a surprise for the missiles to go up against Amboy. This Milledgeville team is not the same Milledgeville team that they showed earlier this year or what Amboy faced last year. It's a different look. And we just talked about it.
Yep.
Roble is making changes at the right time that is producing big-time wins in big-time moments. And I think that's where they get above here.
Yep. Well, no matter how it plays out, I will be thrilled either way to be walking the sidelines in Monmouth. If it ends up being Amboy that wins, I cannot wait to be there to cover your celebration. And you can mock me to my face, but I will be thrilled either way, because I'm excited that it's two teams from our coverage area that we're very familiar with, that we talk about all year. Once again, they're playing for a state title there in Monmouth. And I'm excited to be there for the first time. Kyle, we'll be walking we'll be there together. You'll be in the press box, and maybe before the game you'll walk the sideline with me for a little while, but I'm excited to be there with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be there with you as well. I definitely will be down on the field before the game starts. Bringing my computer. That's why I want to sit up in the press box.
Yep.
Otherwise, I would be on my best duties to be on the field. But it's so much easier when you got a computer and you can work away on that while the game goes on.
Well, and I'm sure you'll be live tweeting, live posting along the way. So,
oh yeah, yeah,
Yep.
that's one of the great things about getting down to the state championship. You can do a lot of live tweeting.
Yep.
A lot faster.
Absolutely, yeah. And then we'll be together in Monmouth. We'll see each other again the following week. The following Friday, we'll be in Bloomington Normal Hancock Stadium for Class 1A through 4A state title games. Mitch, you'll be there. We'll the full gang will be in effect. Kyle from NUIC, you and I, and Ty Taylor from WRMJ. Going to be a great weekend.
Really can't wait for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Certainly, we've got a shot of covering one, if not two teams there on Friday, regardless of what happens, whether it's no teams, one team, two teams. We're going to be covering all 4 games on Friday. Going to be a lot of fun with the boys and looking forward to it.
Yep. And for those interested, so this was obviously the 8-man state championship preview. If you want to hear more about the 11-man football and the teams we got left from around the state, go ahead and check out that episode, which also released at the same time as this one. So 2 episodes in the feed this week, a bunch of exciting football to talk about. Kyle, you're on that one talking a little bit about the Lena Winslow Panthers. They know a thing or two about playing this time of year. So,
yep, they're looking to make new history, hopefully come Saturday with a 5th consecutive trip to the state. But they got a tough opponent in front of them, so it'll be interesting to break that game down. And, Coach Zalesnik's been awesome at getting me information the last couple of weeks as our teams have been going to actually traveling down to Leroy to play them. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited for this game. So, yeah, I'll be turning right around for Monmouth and heading right down to Leroy.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a great weekend. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for jumping on for this one, talking all about the 8-man state championship game Friday night in Monmouth at Monmouth College. The Milledgeville Missiles going up against the Amboy Clippers. Thank you to everyone who listens, to everyone who follows along on X, on YouTube, on Instagram. We appreciate it. And we'll see you. We'll talk to you again soon.